Hey everyone, how's it going? Ben of Augment Guitars here, and I just want to show you what I've been working on. I've had this body and neck for a while now, a couple of years, and I actually received this from a friend who purchased both of these components off eBay, both the neck and the body. And as you can see, they've been through a lot. They've kind of just sat in storage, just moving from box to box, getting all dinged and dented up. So we're going to change that, and we're going to finish this project. So the previous owner finished the body with some sort of, I think it's like a Minwax all-in-one stain poly finish, and I think he laid it on a little bit too thick. As you can see, it's like really textured and kind of rough, and it doesn't look all that great. So off camera, I started sanding with some 60 grit sandpaper on my orbital sander, and realized, hey, this would be a good opportunity to film this and start a little mini series on it. So just some quick specs about the body. It's just a standard Telecaster replacement body, and it's either a 1 or 2 piece mahogany construction. I also started sanding the back too, and as you can see, I still have a little bit to go as it's still in the grain. You can still see the little bit of maroon left in the grain from the old finish. So that's about it for the body. Let's move on to the neck. So just really quick with the neck, it looks like it's just a standard maple and rosewood construction, and it also has plastic side dots as well as just plastic face dots. So if we zoom in a little bit on this fretboard, we can see that the face dots were not drilled and glued in the best. You could see there's a little bit of a gap where they drilled the hole a little bit too big, or maybe there was a little bit of tear out and the glue didn't completely fill that gap. So what I plan on doing is I'm gonna get some probably 7 or 8 millimeter face dots, and I'm actually going to re-drill these out, which will then fill this hole and I can glue them in correctly. So I think that's the right way to do it. I could just put some rosewood dust in there and glue it in, but it would look a lot better if I just re-drilled these out. So off camera, before I started recording, I removed these frets. They were just standard nickel frets, nothing too crazy. They were pretty rough. They weren't polished the best. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace these with some jumbo stainless steel frets. Overall, I think this is going to be a really fun project to complete. It's been a long time coming, so let's get to sanding. Since we did the back already, well, for the most part, let's start with the top. I'm using 60 grit sandpaper, like I said before, and this does a really good job of taking this finish off quickly. When you're using an orbital sander, or even a hand sander for that matter, it's good practice to evenly go throughout the top here, because you don't want to stay in one place for too long and cause that to be unlevel from the rest of the top. And it's coming along nicely. Just keep evenly sanding until all the finish is gone. So the top is mostly done. What I'm going to do now is go back to the back and get rid of the rest of the finish that's in the grain here. So we got a little bit more work to do back here. We have most of the finish taken off the front and the back, and you'll notice that there's some finish still on these edges here. That will actually get taken out when we do the roundover with the roundover router bit, so that's not a problem. But before we do that, we have to take care of these sides and make sure that it's completely to shape. As you can see, there's kind of some little ridges on the sides here. But before we do that, let's talk about these pickup cavities. So these pickup cavities are currently routed for just a standard Telecaster set. And what I think I'm going to do is change the bridge to a humbucker and keep the neck as a single coil. And you can buy, I think All Parts sells them. They're just a Tele style plate bridge that's configured for a humbucker, and it makes things really easy, and it's actually fairly cheap too. So with that out of the way, let's get back to sanding. So let's swap that 60 grit belt with this 120 grit belt. This will help us smooth out those sides, and it'll also increase the grit for when we go up for finish sanding. The key is here to just keep moving. Don't stay in one spot for too long because you'll end up with flat spots like you've seen in my previous clip. Just keep sanding in a nice fluid motion and make sure you get everything sanded. Another thing I like to do is I like to make a pass, and then when I go to do another pass, I'll do it behind that first pass, thus blending it in. And here's another view, and you can really see the benefits to having this rigid belt sander. This is actually the belt attachment to it, but it also has two different diameters on each side, one bigger and one smaller. And these two different diameters really help with the various contours that are on guitar bodies. It actually saves a lot of time from switching attachments because this also has a spindle sander attachment. But having these two different diameters really helps with just making quick work of sanding the sides. So with most of the sides done, let's move to the horn area. And for this, we need the spindle sander attachment. So let's go ahead and change that out. Just like the belt, we're going to be starting with 120 grit. And I believe this is a 1 or 2 inch spindle. So on this area, this spindle makes it really easy to sand. We're going to be going in fluent motions like before and using the same techniques. Another thing to note, when working around the neck pocket area, make sure you take as little off as possible because this could affect how the neck sits in this pocket. So we don't want to take too much off here. All right, moving on to the next side. So I like to use this spindle attachment actually for this too because I feel like it does a really good job with this big contour that we have. It also does a little bit better job, I feel, than the belt sander in getting that kind of fluid pass each time you go about it. So unfortunately, the audio did not record for this one, but we switched to the small spindle. So this small spindle is actually the perfect size for this little Telecaster contour here. Alright, so we have all the sides sanded down to 120 grit. What I like to do is just take a sanding block or anything that's really level and just kind of sand the sides one last time just to really make sure that there's no ridges left from the belt sander or the spindle sander. And in the areas where the sanding block just doesn't really fit, just do some hand sanding. Just fold up some sandpaper and that should be good enough. So that's about it for this episode. We have the body pretty much where we want it sanding wise, at least with the final shape. So the next step is to do a tummy cut and also a forearm cut. So in the next episode, we're going to be drawing both of those cuts out. We're going to cut them out, and we're also going to do the roundover on the edges. And I also got a new tool to make that really easy. So I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.